In March of 2017, a trail camera in the Babcock Ranch Preserve in Charlotte County, Florida, caught something the state had not confirmed in 44 years. Two Florida panther kittens tucked into the palmetto on the north bank of a slow brown river called the Caloosahatchee. That river matters more than almost anyone who saw the clip understood. For most of living memory, it had worked like a wall, and every breeding panther in Florida lived penned on the south side of it. The last female documented on the north bank was there in 1973, and in the decades between, the cats trapped below that river had already come within about 24 animals of vanishing from the earth. So 2 kittens in the wrong place is not a small thing. It might be the line between one swamp and a future. Start with the river itself. The Caloosahatchee runs east to west across the bottom third of the state, from Lake Okeechobee down to the Gulf near Fort Myers, a wide tea-colored channel walled in places by levees and cut by locks. South of it sits the country the Florida panther had been squeezed into. The big cypress swamp, the fringe of the Everglades, the wet pine and cypress of the southwest corner. That corner is about 5% of the range this cat used to hold. 200 years ago, the Florida panther ranged across the whole southeastern United States, from Louisiana and Arkansas across to South Carolina. By the end of the 20th century, it lived in one damp pocket at the bottom of one state, and a river held the lid on it. Now, the strange part is that the river was never really a wall for the males. Male panthers are what biologists call obligate dispersers. When a young male grows up, the older males drive him off his mother's range, and he has to walk until he finds country of his own. Those young males had been crossing the Caloosahatchee for years. They would swim it or cross a bridge causeway at night and wander north into central Florida looking for territory. But a male alone is a dead end for the species. He can walk 1,000 miles and father nothing because there are no females where he lands. The females were the whole problem. Female panthers do the opposite of the males. They tend to settle close to where they were born, in ground they already know, and they do not go looking for new frontiers the way a young male will. That behavior is exactly what keeps a population stable, and it is also exactly what had trapped this one. For a female to end up breeding on the far bank, she has to do the hardest version of everything at once. She has to leave the only country she knows, cross the river, survive the highways and the ranch fences and the subdivisions on the other side, hold a territory in unfamiliar ground, and then find a male who made the same crossing, all before she could raise a single kitten. For 44 years, as far as anyone could confirm, no female had done it. So the question hanging over the whole recovery was brutally simple. Could the animal ever get out of the corner, or was it going to live and die in one swamp? For decades, the pattern held. Males on the north bank sometimes. Kittens on the north bank, never. The whole breeding engine of the species stayed locked below the water. Biologists watched it happen and knew exactly what it meant. As long as no female ever crossed and raised young on the far side, the Florida panther was one population in one place, and a single population in a single place is always one bad year from gone. Then the cameras at Babcock Ranch started catching something. Across 2015 and 2016, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission collected photographs of a panther moving through the preserve north of the river, and the images showed a female. In November of 2016, the agency confirmed it. A breeding-age female living on the north bank, the first documented up there since 1973. And a few months later, in the spring of 2017, the cameras answered the only question that actually mattered. She was not alone. She had kittens with her. She had crossed the wall and bred on the other side. Babcock Ranch itself tells you why the North Bank was the place it finally happened. It is a sprawl of old cattle pasture, pine flatwoods, and cypress strand in Charlotte County. Tens of thousands of acres that the state and its partners bought and set aside, instead of letting it become another grid of rooftops. It is exactly the kind of large, lightly roaded country a female needs to hold a range and raise young. The corridor north of the river had not vanished. Most of it had just been sitting there, waiting on a cat willing to use it. To feel why that landed on biologists as hard as it did, you have to go back to what nearly happened to these cats in the first place, in the years right before most people watching this were born. It did not get that bad by accident. The Florida panther was hunted, shot on sight, and killed for bounty for generations, treated as vermin right up until the middle of the 20th century. At the same time, the water was being pulled out from under it. The draining and diking of the Everglades, the canals, the farms, and the roads carved the wet wilderness of South Florida into pieces and paved over the rest. What had been one connected sheet of water and sawgrass became a plumbing system of levees and pumps. Every decade there was less room. The cats that survived got pushed into the last unwanted country, the swamp nobody had figured out how to drain, and the door quietly closed behind them. By the early 1990s, the panther was not just rare. It was, by the honest read of the science, almost over. Field counts put the population somewhere around 20 to 25 adult animals, not 25,025. Researchers modeling the trend projected the subspecies could be functionally extinct within about 20 years. This was the last puma left breeding anywhere in the eastern United States. Every other eastern cougar population had already been shot and trapped out of existence generations earlier. The Florida panther was the final one, and it was running out of animals. And the smaller it got, the worse its blood became. When a population shrinks to a couple dozen and stays cut off, every cat starts to be related to every other cat. And the defects that inbreeding usually keeps hidden start showing up in the open. In Florida panthers, the signature was unmistakable. Kinked tails bent hard at the tip like a crook, cowlicks of fur along the spine, holes in the heart, a defect called an atrial septal defect that killed kittens before they grew, and in the males, a reproductive collapse. Between 1990 and 1995, 63% of the male panthers examined had at least one undescended testicle, a condition called cryptorchidism, along with poor sperm quality and heavy parasite loads. Almost 2 out of every 3 males were partly sterile. A population cannot climb out of a hole like that on its own. Left alone, the math only runs one direction. So in 1995, wildlife managers did something that was, at the time, genuinely controversial. They went to Texas, captured 8 wild female pumas, and released them into panther country in South Florida. On its face, that sounds like cheating, like mixing 2 different animals to fake a rescue. That was the objection then, and you still hear it now. But it was not mixing strangers. Texas pumas and Florida panthers were once a single connected population that stretched across the Gulf states. Cats moved and bred along that whole southern band for thousands of years. What broke the connection was us. Roads, cities, farms, and hunting cut Florida off and left its cats on a genetic island. This is a technique biologists call genetic rescue, and the logic is exact. You bring in a few outside animals to add fresh genes to a population choking on its own, and the inbreeding defects fade within a generation. 8 females was a deliberately small number, just enough to restore the gene flow that geography used to provide before we severed it, and not so many that the Florida cat would be swamped out of its own bloodline. And it worked, fast. 5 of the 8 Texas females bred and produced kittens. Those kittens were healthier, stronger, and far less inbred than the animals before them. The numbers tell it cleanly. That same cryptorchidism rate, 63% of males in the early 90s, fell to about 3% in males examined between 2013 and 2018. Genetic diversity roughly doubled. Survival went up, kitten deaths went down. And the population that had been under 30 animals staring down extinction climbed to somewhere between 120 and 230, right around a threefold increase, pulled back from the very edge. If you only keep one panther fact from today, keep that one. And if you live anywhere these cats might turn up, do me a favor and drop your county and what you have seen in the comments. State biologists actually read those, and a photo from the right backyard has redrawn the map before. But here is what the genetic rescue did not fix, and this is where the river comes back. All of those animals, the whole recovered population, still lived in the same place, south of the Caloosahatchee. The rescue had healed their genetics, but it had done nothing to change where they could live. You could triple the number of cats, and it changed nothing about the deeper trap, because they were all still stacked into that same 5% of the old range, breathing the same swamp, crossing the same roads. A healthier population in a cage is still a population in a cage, and that cage has a body count. The single biggest documented killer of Florida panthers today is not disease, and it is not other panthers. It is cars. In 2022, 27 panthers were found dead, and 25 of them had been hit by vehicles. Set that against a running average of about 32 panther deaths a year between 2014 and 2022, and you see the pattern hold, season after season. Picture why. You have a growing number of large, wide-ranging cats jammed into a shrinking pocket of southwest Florida that gets laced with more two-lane highways and more headlights every year. The young males still disperse. They still have to walk to find their own ground. And when the only ground left is threaded with asphalt, a lot of them die on the center line in the dark, many on the rural two lanes of Collier County that have become the deadliest ground the species has, and the population bleeds off exactly the animals it needs to spread. There is a reason wildlife agencies have spent millions building panther underpasses beneath the worst of those highways, tunnels with fencing that funnel the cats safely under the traffic. They work where they exist. But you cannot tunnel an entire region, and a cat boxed into one flood-prone corner of one hurricane state is exposed in a way no underpass fixes. One population in one place can be wiped out by a single event, a disease sweeping through animals that are all still closely related, a major hurricane flooding the denning grounds in the wrong week, one bad decade. Almost every one of these cats still lives in the same handful of southwest counties in Collier and Hendry and the Big Cypress country, the same ground their grandparents were penned into. Everything the panther is rides on that one basket, in that one swamp, below that one river. That is the whole reason a single female on the north bank of the Caloosahatchee is such a big deal. Not because two kittens by themselves are a recovery, they are not. It is because of what she proves is possible. Panthers breeding on both sides of the river means the species is no longer betting its entire existence on one patch of ground. A female breeding north of the Caloosahatchee is the first real crack in the wall that penned the whole species for 44 years. North of that river is central Florida, and beyond it is the corridor of forest and ranch land that once carried these cats up the whole spine of the southeast. She is the first step onto a road out of the corner. It would be easy to oversell this, and being straight with you is the whole point of this channel, so I will not. One female and a couple of litters do not undo 4 decades of being boxed in. Biologists know how slowly this actually moves. For panthers to truly reclaim range north of the river, females have to settle and hold and raise more females, who then push farther still, generation after generation, the way recolonization always crawls. That could take a very long time, and it is not guaranteed to hold. It is a first step, and nothing more than that yet, but it is a door that had been shut since 1973. The Caloosahatchee is still there. It still runs its slow brown line across the bottom of the state, from the lake to the Gulf, past the levees and the locks, the same water that stood as a wall for the entire life of nearly everyone watching this. For 44 years, it decided how far a whole species was allowed to exist. Then one female from a population that had been 20-some cats away from gone walked to the north bank, lay down in the palmetto, and had her kittens where the record said no panther could. The river did not move. The animal it was holding simply stopped treating it as the edge of the world. And out there tonight, somewhere on the dark far bank, the cat that America almost lost is testing the fence line of the only world it was ever allowed, and finding for the first time in a lifetime that it gives.